Rainbow Reflections, Book 2, Put Out the Fire. Chapter 14, Somebody to Love. The first Saturday of December arrived, Hyaktu waking up to see pale light streaming through the long windows of his room. He stretched where he lay on a blanket on the floor, twisting and turning until the stiffness was out of his back. Then he sat up, linking his arms around his legs as he blinked at the trees painted along the green walls. His room contained a wardrobe, an easel with canvas and paints, a small chest of books, and a few weapons, like a trident, lining the walls. After a few moments of tranquil observation, Hyaktu sprang to his feet like a geyser. He got changed into a green tank top and emerald pants, shivering for only a few moments until he donned his usual indigo robe. As he tended to overheat, Hyaktu's wardrobe mostly contained tank tops, though he wore sweaters once winter's chill fell upon the world. Once done, he grabbed his folded black sash from the top of the dresser and tied it around his waist. He exited his room, ignoring the door directly across from him, which led to the bridge, and scampered down the spiraling stairs. As he reached the family room, he headed for the fireplace, where his pointed blue shoes sat, and tugged them on his feet with ease. He glanced at the clock on the wall and realized that breakfast had already started. He had slept in. Grumbling in dismay, he exited the tower, not bothering to do his typical morning qigong. Hyaktu crossed the chilly courtyard, his forearms cold as the robe's sleeves didn't fall completely to his wrist. He ignored the bitter breeze blowing by, bounding rapidly to the entrance hall. Going through the door on his left, Hyaktu was feeling much warmer by the time he entered the admin hall. Within seconds, he reached the admin office, where Khurshid and Fern already sat at the desk in the center of the room. "Good morning," Hyaktu called as he shut the door. Khurshid stifled a yawn as he returned the greeting, looking disgruntled. Fern merely nodded, her lips pursed as she gazed at Hyaktu. Neither of them said anything as he walked over to the desk and sat down behind it. "Where are we at with the mushroom situation?" Hyaktu asked Fern. "None in the greenhouse," she reported curtly. "And I've searched the school, but I have not come across any others. As for the ones outside the school, I'm in the process of looking up a way to kill them off before they spread even more." "Thank you," Hyaktu said with a dip of his head. "Has Ren had any visions of Aster?" Fern queried, shifting in her chair. Hyaktu sighed. "No, not that I know of." "When are we going to search for him?" Fern grumbled. "Over the winter break," Hyaktu promised. "But while the students are here, we can't afford to leave. Once they go home, the three of us will search the surrounding forest." Fern sighed and sat back in her chair with a nod, crossing her arms over her chest. "Fine," she uttered. "So long as we make a move soon. Aster's been missing for months." "I know," Hyaktu said quietly, placing his elbows on the desk so he could rest his chin on his open palm. "I wish my magic had worked, or that the frog oils had found him, or that Ren had the vision over summer break when we could have done something." Fern touched her spiral necklace and closed her eyes. "We'll find you soon, Aster," she promised. "You haven't been able to find any clues through your spirit magic?" Hyaktu pressed. "Maybe a location potion, or speaking to the plants, or anything?" Fern shook her head. "Nothing has worked. I tried to brew a location potion, but when the mushroom thing happened, my attention was averted and I forgot to add a crucial ingredient. The potion had to be scrapped, and it takes a few weeks to brew." She sighed and shook her head again.
"You tried your best,"
Khurshid said in a soothing tone.
"and you'll be able to try again soon."
But Fern continued shaking her head, her hair bouncing like a hopping bush. "I used up most of the rarer ingredients, so I'll need to go into town to get more. I just hope our search of the forest turns up something." "Oh, Jabali could bring all of the ingredients you need," Hyaktu said, straightening up. The bell rang, signaling the end of breakfast. The teachers were quiet until it stopped echoing through the room. "I'll give you a list soon," Fern said curtly. "But the potion is a lot of work, so I won't be attempting it again until winter break." Hyaktu nodded and got to his feet. "Well, I woke up a little late, so I better get going to the art studio. I have to get to Zin's last detention session." As he made to move around the desk, Khurshid stood up.
"About that, Hyaktu?"
Hyaktu froze in his tracks, one hand half sliding along the wooden surface. "About what?"
"Fern and I have been discussing Zinnivis,"
Khurshid said, his face dismayed.
We believe they still have no magic and should be removed from classes before the semester's end.
Hyaktu sighed lightly. Khurshid, Zin has magic. It just doesn't always work. Zinivus is non-magical, Fern said, standing up to and placing a hand on her hip. They need to be pulled out of classes. Let's wait for the finals, Hyaktu grumbled. Maybe their magic will make more of an appearance there. But they don't have magic, Fern stated bluntly. They do! Look at that fire they made in the courtyard, which is why they're serving detention in the first place, Hyaktu pointed out. How can you two still say they aren't magical? Khurshid sighed.
Very well, Hyaktu. We'll wait to see how they do on the finals this time around. But if they're struggling to get through and don't show any signs of magical ability, I want them out of my classes next semester.
Hyaktu opened his mouth to protest, but Fern quickly added, And removed from my classes too. It's not like they can do all the enchantments required for potions if they don't have magic. Fine, Hyaktu muttered. Now, I need to get going. Remain alert for any signs of mushrooms, Kaokats, Mimeta, spirits, and Aster. Hyaktu swiftly exited the room, not bothering to close the door behind him as he crossed the hall to the healing room. Weaving his way through beds and cabinets full of vials, and hurried across the cobblestone to the northern building. Khurshid followed at a slower pace, going to the Kung Fu studio to overview Ren's martial arts club session, like he'd done for the past 3 weeks. Reaching the art studio, Hyaktu pulled open the door and entered. The room was more long than wide, stuffed with desks in the front and easels in the back. A few cabinets lined the walls, containing supplies like pencils, brushes, chalk, paint, canvases, fabric, and more. Zin was sitting at one of the desks in the front row, dressed in a thick yellow robe with red flowers and green leaves patterned on it. They wore a red fuzzy hat on their head, causing their scarlet hair to fall across their eyes. Hyaktu closed the door and sat down at the desk next to Zin, who let out a soft sigh and slumped over the table, looking away from their father. They never seemed to look his way now. Hyaktu resisted sighing himself, knowing that the gap between them would only grow if he didn't do something soon. But it's not a big gap to begin with, he told himself. Zin was worried about me when the mushrooms showed up, and even helped me look for more. They still care about me as much as I care about them. There might be some distance between us right now, but not for much longer. Are we going to do another meditation? Zin grumbled, their voice stifled by their arm. No, Hyaktu said simply, offering Zin a smile as they glanced up at him in surprise. I know the meditations haven't been the most helpful to you, so we're going to try something else today. It's still a form of meditation, but it's one you'll find way more enjoyable. It is? Zin mumbled, sitting up straight again. But I don't like any meditation. And didn't you just say we're not doing it? We'll be doing art today. Art? Hyaktu nodded. Art is a way of making sense of the world around us, of dealing with our emotions, Hyaktu replied. I'd like you to do some sort of art expressing yourself, and what you are going through inside. Zin frowned but made no response. Hyaktu hopped up and walked over to one of the cabinets. He pulled out some paper and handed it to Zin, along with a pencil. You may draw, write, whatever you want to do, Hyaktu told them. Take as much time as you need. Zin sighed and picked up the pencil, but didn't do anything. Knowing they were likely in deep thought, Hyaktu moved to the back of the class to give them some space. He grabbed some paint and brushes from a different cabinet, then approached an easel holding a blank canvas. Hyaktu then set about painting a large pool of water with a white lotus in the center. He glanced over at Zin from time to time, ensuring that they started on their art project. At one point, Zin got up to get some colored pencils. It began raining outside, the only sound apart from the soft scrapes of brush and pencil at work. As Hyaktu painted the petals of the flower, Zin finally stirred. I'm done, they called over their shoulder, sitting back in their chair. Hyaktu set down his paints and hurried to the front of the room. Zin was leaning back in their chair, their paper flipped over on the desk in front of them. They glanced up as he approached, careful to avoid making eye contact with him. As Hyaktu sat beside them once more, Zin got to their feet abruptly and moved to the back of the room, muttering something about looking at Hyaktu's painting. Figuring that Zin did not want their father judging their art, Hyaktu allowed them to hide in the maze of easels before flipping over the piece of paper. It depicted two scenes. On the left side of the page, there was a picture of Hyaktu, Ren, and Sarala in a group, each of them performing magic. Hyaktu was using martial arts to control water and air, while Ren used a wand to create wind. Sarala was doing a mix of both, an uppercut while holding a wand to lift the earth beneath her. On the right side of the page, there were 5 people: Hyaktu, Ren, Sarala, C3, and Jabali. They were drawn doing martial arts, each in a unique pose. Hyaktu was in a cross-step position while doing circular motions with his arms. Ren was doing a palm strike in a bow stance. Sarala was performing a thrusting kick with the heel of her foot. C3 was driving the tip of his elbow forward to strike an imaginary opponent's solar plexus or nose. And Jabali was striking with both fists in a square stance. At the center of the page near the bottom, caught between the two images, Zin had drawn themselves. They were sitting on the floor with their arms wrapped around their knees, looking tiny and weak next to the magical and martial figures. Heart sinking and aching like it'd just been hit with a heavy punch, Hyaktu instantly looked up to see Zin, but they were completely concealed from his sight. Hyaktu opened his mouth to call them over, but found that he couldn't speak. All that came out was a croak. Clearing his throat, he tried again, but to no avail. Eyes pricking, Hyaktu walked to the back of the room, leaving the art on the desk. He found his child at the very end of the canvases, staring out the window on the back wall. Their hand was pressed against the glass, their breath fogging it lightly. They did not turn as he approached, watching the running raindrops. Hyaktu couldn't speak past the lump in his throat, settling for telepathy.
Zinovis.
Zin did not reply, nor show any sign that they had heard him. Hyaktu stood next to Zin, putting a hand on their shoulder, the fabric smooth beneath his palm. Zin did not move, their eyes as glazed as the window in front of them.
Zinovis, you're feeling left out,
Hyaktu stated.
You're sad and confused as to why you're struggling. I understand what you're going through.
No, you don't, Zin responded in bitter irritation. Hyaktu sighed.
I do. I've been in a similar position myself, except for a vast majority of my younger years.
Zin turned to him at last, frowning. What do you mean? Hyaktu paused. He had not told his kids much of his time growing up, beyond that he had lived at a martial arts school and went on to become an instructor. At first, the twins had been too young to know the challenges he had faced. As they got older, they never bothered to ask him questions, and he still did not feel ready to tell them. Even now, Hyaktu felt the time wasn't right. He wanted Ren to be there too, perhaps Jabali to help fill in details. Finally, Hyaktu murmured aloud,
I struggled with martial arts when I first started. Actually, I wasn't allowed to do it until I was about 6, when most people started at 4 or 5. I was seriously ill as a kid, just like you, and when I began, I felt like I was behind everyone else.
He leaned against the window, facing the wide-eyed Zin as he continued speaking.
I struggled to comprehend certain things with martial arts. The other students bullied me and called me stupid for being slower than everyone else. This caused me to act out and shut off to others. I went through so many teachers, which just hindered my progress more.
Hyaktu shook his head as memories floated to the forefront of his mind. He shut them out as quickly as they came, and they faded into the background. I never knew that, Zin mumbled. Is that why you had magic blocks? Because you were bullied?
No, I actually discovered my magic early, thanks to the bullies and shutting myself off to others,
Hyaktu said.
Frowning, he added, Not that I'm telling you to shut yourself off to everyone in order to find your magic, because even though I connected earlier than others, my magic was weak, and I believe this was due to having no connection with other people.
But what happened? How did you catch up to everyone else? How did you become an instructor if you weren't good at martial arts? How did you become a master magician if your magic was weak? How did your magic become stronger? Zin asked, stumbling over their words as they threw question after question at him. Hyaktu now stared at the wooden floor as the memories tried to come through again.
I put in the hard work, and once I got an instructor who understood me, things became better.
He smiled lightly and ran a hand through his hair as he added,
Jabali also showed up soon after. Having a set training partner allowed me to figure out concepts better and learn how to teach.
Having a friend increased my self-confidence and belief in myself, which then allowed my magic to improve. And having a best friend freed my spirit and opened my heart. Glancing back at Zin, he said, I overcame the struggles I faced by sticking close to those who believed in me and loved me, and by putting in hard work and keeping at it. So, I need to practice more? Zin asked. They stared out the window again, the rain suddenly downpouring. But I already practice. I try, Dad. I really do. But I'm just not as good as Ren or Sarala. Why do you compare yourself to them? Because they're so much better than me, Zin muttered, unable to look into Hyaktu's eyes. They're better than me with everything. Ren's so good with magic and knowing all those little details for tests and stuff. And Sarala's really good with martial arts. I'm just not good at anything. Hyaktu shifted closer to Zin until they looked into their father's eyes. You don't need to compare yourself to them, he said quietly. They aren't you. They have different bodies that can do different things. They have different brains that learn things in different ways. There's no need to compare oneself with someone else, when we are all unique and have different abilities. That still doesn't change the fact that I'm not good at anything, Zin muttered bitterly, dropping their gaze again. Hyaktu squeezed Zin's shoulder. That's not true, he said firmly. Then what am I good at? Zin asked in a choking way. Acting? Playing games? How's any of that supposed to help me progress in life or magic or anything? Ren can take her knowledge with her anywhere, and Sarala can do a lot with martial arts. But me? I'm just nobody. Get those thoughts out of your head right now, Hyaktu growled. We all have our strengths and weaknesses. We all have things we're good at, and things that we work on to become good at. From now on, I want you to be more confident in who you are, and not compare yourself to others, okay? Zin sighed and hung their head. Be like water, not fire, Hyaktu went on, trying a different approach. Persist and overcome challenges in the long run, like a river shaping the land around it over years of persistence. Don't burn out in the short term, like a raging fire, doing damage to not only everyone around you, but also yourself. Zin gazed at Hyaktu solemnly for several long moments, then nodded. Be like water, they murmured. There's a time and place for fire, Hyaktu added, but you need to be more like water right now. Zin nodded again, looking back out the window. The two stood in silence, listening to the pounding rain. Hyaktu let out a soft sigh as he stared at the fleeing drops. He pulled Zin into a one-armed hug, the water washing away the gap between them. Zin leaned their head on Hyaktu's shoulder. Smiling, Hyaktu reached a hand up and brushed the hair from their eyes. Remember, Zin, we can overcome any obstacle we set our minds to, Hyaktu murmured. I know you can do the magic, and the martial arts, and anything else you decide to pursue. Have faith in your own unique abilities, and know that I have faith in you. Zin nodded again. Thanks, Dad. Hyaktu's smile broadened. Of course, Zin, he whispered. I love you very much.